Hidely ho, neighbourinos. We are back for the second ever Full Fat podcast. I'm joined by the ever repugnant Chris Fulsell.
Thank you for that. I was expecting something negative, so it's good to hear you call me repugnant.
Yeah, repugnant is people. A lot of people don't know that, but in Britain, in England specifically, it's actually a term of endearment.
I mean, I don't know what it means, so I just presumed it was a compliment. So
yeah. Well, it's better than the C word. Should we put it that way?
Oh, okay.
How are you, Chris?
I'm good. I'm slightly shocked by today's news in the film world, which I now realise we're recording this on a different day. So when I say today, I mean the day in which the Oscars were announced.
Are we going to pretend the day that it drops is the day we record?
No,
we're going to leave it as a mystery.
Who thinks that we? Who honestly thinks that like when they're listening to us live? Like
we fly by the seat of our pants. We record and then literally just send it out into the ether.
Yeah,
screw editing.
That doesn't happen.
Screw checking.
God, the number of gaffes on this. But I mean today. You can probably guess what day we're recording if you can be so bothered. But today the Oscar nominations came out, and
my boy Sandman was robbed. He was robbed, and the Safdies were robbed as well.
For those of you who need that in translation, Adam Sandler failed to gain a nomination for Uncut Gems, and in fact the film itself didn't receive any nomination, despite winning quite a lot of buzz and praise from critics pretty much uniformly across the board.
And it being the best film of 2019.
Are you really confident enough to say that?
Yeah, there was a lot of things I loved last year, but when I saw Uncut Gems, I saw it on the second when it dropped at the Prince Charles this year, and then I saw it again over the weekend. So I feel like I've seen it enough times now to confidently cement it as my number one pick for last year. Probably followed closely by Knives Out, and I actually had a list I was making earlier.
What is What is it about Uncut Gems that you like so much?
Well, I love the Safdies ever since Good Time, and I was really hyped for this. And what I love about them is they take actors that maybe within popular culture are sort of considered, illegitimate. I mean, after Pattinson did all the Twilight films, a lot of people think he's a terrible actor, and it's kind of the same thing with Sandler. He likes to make family comedies, and in both Good Time and Uncut Gems, it's like a deep dive into some of the most depraved characters you'll ever meet in cinema. But particularly with Uncut Gems, it's about a man with an intense gambling addiction, and it's a bit like... Have you seen After Hours? I've never asked you this.
I actually haven't seen After Hours.
Okay, it's a bit like Martin Scorsese's After Hours, mixed with Good Time, mixed with Adam Sandler just being Adam Sandler. That was the thing that really blew me away the first time round is... This is an incredible performance where he dissolves into the role. You don't see Adam Sandler, you see Howard Ratner. But at the same time, he's not doing... Like, you know how comedians sometimes when they do serious roles, they'll wear a load of prosthetics, they'll do a different accent, they'll try and completely disassociate from their brand. Adam Sandler is not doing this. He's doing full tilt Adam Sandler in every scene, and yet you're still completely immersed in the movie. It's great.
So do you think it's the fact that the film itself is playing on the fact that he's Adam Sandler, or do you think it's the fact that the role is just so suited to him that he doesn't have to try? Like, is it like a conscious performance? If you know what I mean?
I don't think it's in like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge way of like, oh yeah, this is Sandler. You know him from like all these comedies, right? But at the same time, when he drops the funny in the movie, it's pure Sandler. And I was listening to a podcast from the Safdies earlier, and you can tell they're massive fans of like all of his kind of like earlier comedies. So that DNA is clearly there. But there's so many moments in the movie where you're stressed as hell just watching, because not only is everything going wrong for him, and there's about a million different things happening at once, they're all falling on his head. He also repeatedly gets the opportunity to make things right, and he makes the worst decisions possible, and you're just sitting there like, no, Howard, why are you doing this? Also, it's well over 2 hours, doesn't feel like it. It's insanely tight. The script is terrific. It's Good Time with Adam Sandler, but I'd say it's better. It's having thought about it, I was of two minds, because I think Good Time's a leaner beast. And if you were going to watch one first, have you not been introduced to the Safdies before, I'd watch Good Time first. But Uncut Gems it's a little bit cosmic as well, without going too much into it.
Okay, that's really interesting. I mean, it's strange to me because I feel like the film on paper fits the kind of the mold that you would think that the Academy would go for. I mean, you've got an actor who is not known for Academy prowess, so that you've got a sort of an unknown contender coming out of nowhere. You've got these up-and-coming directors. You've got a script which is kind of, from what I've heard about the film, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, it's touching on real-world issues to do with like diamonds and like current trade and things like that.
It's a deeply personal story.
So it just surprises me that the Academy haven't kind of lapped this film up.
I'm a bit saddened.
It says to me things like Jeff Bridges getting an Oscar for Crazy Heart, that kind of, or Mickey Rourke getting nommed for The Wrestler. Even if he wasn't going to win, it surprises me because it's just such a good PR thing to say, hey, Adam Sandler was nominated for an Oscar this year.
No, I completely agree with you. And even if the performance wasn't incredible, I see all those reasons as to why the Academy would vote for it. But the thing is, like, even removed from that, like, I do think it's the best performance of the year. And I'm really sad that Sandler didn't get nommed, that Safdie's didn't get nommed, and they didn't get nommed for Best Picture.
I mean, I think what we've got to talk about really here is that I think all this with Joker, Joker received 11 nominations. I think what that kind of comes down to, at least what I think part of it comes down to, is there was that controversy last year revolving them trying to do a Best Popular Film category. That was very ill-pitched. Black Panther obviously got a lot of love at the Oscars last year. So we've kind of been on the precipice of a superhero movie, or it's not really...
it's not a superhero movie, even though it very much is a superhero movie.
We've been on the precipice, and what Todd Phillips has done is figured out a way to basically hit the right buttons to kind of remove himself from the genre and kind of put himself... I'm not saying this is a positive or a negative, just he's found the right code to kind of put himself into a zone where his film could be appreciated by not even critics, just by like Academy voters.
One of my problems with the movie when it came out is that it felt like Todd Phillips wanted to try and have his cake and eat it too. He wanted to make a comic book movie, even though he said he didn't, by bringing in all these elements of lore and like Bruce Wayne and his parents and like the night they died. Spoilers, I mean, everyone in the world and their mum's seen this movie at this point. I mean, I did actually take my mum to see this movie, so that's not wholly inaccurate. And then he also wanted to make this like drama that was, a homage, shall we say, in his words, but really more of a rip-off of better Scorsese films like Taxi Driver and The King of Comedy.
I mean, we don't like it, but it's been successful in that respect. Like, he's achieved his goal, right?
Yeah, because he has had his cake and eaten, isn't he? It's been nominated for Best Picture, and it also made $1 billion. So, fair play in that respect. But I don't enjoy it. I think it's... At what point, with these kinds of things like Stranger Things, Joker, are we not referencing other popular media, and at what point are we just derivative of it?
I mean, that's kind of the issue with it, because I would argue, I've had many both sober and drunken arguments with people about whether it's a pastiche or a rip-off. And like, to me, like, a pastiche does something with the source material and reinvents it for the modern age. So something like Star Wars is great because it takes that kind of hokey 50s Buck Rogers stuff that isn't taken seriously, and it translates it and says, what if we took this with absolute seriousness? And that's what Star Wars does so cleverly. It takes hokey, terrible science fiction and over the top science fiction OTT, and it translates it. In many ways, the revival of Doctor Who is a pastiche of old Doctor Who, right? Yeah. It takes the ropey special effects, etc. And then Russell T Davies, when he relaunched it, said, but what if we took this seriously, and what if we addressed modern issues? This movie, whilst obviously there's a lot of people saying that it addresses Occupy Wall Street and things like that, it's taking the bare...
do it with any subtlety.
And Taxi Driver already did... The issues that it's kind of reflected are reflected in Taxi Driver, and the idea of a dangerous loner, and what if the government was doing nothing to help everyday people. I mean, that's literally the cab scene in Taxi Driver. Yeah.
There's nothing that Joker does that Taxi Driver and King of Comedy haven't done better. That's what makes me sad about it, and I really, really love both of those movies.
And the fact that it's set in the 80s as well, it doesn't even bother to do something modern. You know what, I could get behind a movie more where rather than it being, say, him on a talk show in the 80s shooting someone in live TV...
Is it the 80s or the 70s?
I think, I've got this feeling it's the early 80s, because I think, aren't they taking the mick out of Yuppies and Wall Street?
I can't quite remember when it's set, but yeah, that does sound right.
You understand my point, though, right? Is that, say they put this in the modern age, that would be a YouTube video, right? He wouldn't shoot like Murray the talk show host. He'd do a YouTube video and kill someone, right?
Yeah.
And there's
well, I mean, kind of like how Heath Ledger's Joker makes
videos
viral
in the Dark Knight,
isn't he? Yeah.
And that's at least that's modern, that's contemporary. This film is set in a society that we don't really recognise anymore, and I think it's a joke for people to be sitting here going, that's just like the real world. Like, I don't think it's operating in our reality.
There's a lot of people that love it, obviously, probably some of them being our listeners and viewers of the channel. So if you did enjoy it, fair enough. I can't force you to not enjoy it, but I just think, I think Chris, you agree with me that it's just it doesn't say anything new, and to me it just feels like Todd Phillips watched old Scorsese movies and thought, yeah, we could slap some Joker on that, and it'll make $1 billion. And you know what? He was right.
I mean, as I say, like, I don't particularly like Todd Phillips as a person, especially because of some of the inflammatory comments and the kind of the weird lapse into pretension that he's had, given he directed not just Hangover 1, which is a good comedy, but Hangover 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Like, is strange to me that he's asking us now to treat him like he's the second coming of Orson Welles.
Well, he was at, he was part of the Directors Round Table of the Hollywood Reporter, and there were people there like Noah Baumbach, Greta Gerwig, and I was just like, and Scorsese himself. And I just felt like, you've made one movie that people have considered really, really good, and then obviously like The Hangover, which is a great comedy. But Noah Baumbach has made countless great films. So I mean, Greta Gerwig made Little Women and Lady Bird. Scorsese needs no introduction. Do you really have the caliber to be sat around the table with these people?
I guess Gerwig and Baumbach never made a film that was as talked about as Joker. I don't know.
The only reason he's in the room is because it's the most talked about movie of the year, and it is the most talked about movie of the year.
There's no denying that. Like,
no.
I'm not trying to, I'm trying to rationalise this 11 nominations, because clearly this has come from the fact that it has had a big impact on people, and it has driven discussion. Even people who hate it, like, it's a thing that it has in its favour is it is a divisive film. And I feel like it will be talked about for a while, for better or for worse. Yeah. Almost frustratingly, because I think there's other films that should be more higher conversation in 2019. I mean, you didn't like it as much as me. I think Midsummer's been omitted a bit in some of the technical categories because its production design was absolutely stellar. I think Us has had a bit of a snub.
Oh, well, on that note, would you like to see my top? It's currently a top 8 because I haven't thought about what I'd want for the 9th and 10th place. I think I will keep building it as I go on Letterboxd, but my best of 2019 so far is 1 Uncut Gems, 2 Knives Out, 3 Marriage Story, 4 Jojo Rabbit, 5 Us, 6 The Lighthouse, 7 Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and 8 Booksmart. That may be subject to change. They may shift around a little bit, but I feel like those 8 movies are the things that I saw in 2019 that I absolutely adored. And maybe to a lesser extent, John Wick 3. Because blockbusters took a real beating that year, and John Wick, my boy, was the only one that came out of it fighting strong.
I mean, I think on reassessment, I enjoyed Endgame a lot more than the first time I watched it.
You watched it with your mum and dad over Christmas?
I did, yes. I think removed from the hype, it's actually it is a well-made blockbuster. I think it still sags in the middle, and I think the ending kind of does that thing that I think a lot of big blockbusters are kind of guilty of often, and I don't mean this in a pretentious fashion, but it does ultimately, that end set piece doesn't have the clarity as something of like the airport scene in Civil War or the battle, and it devolves into kind of just lots of CGI explosions.
It
which
looks
obviously
like it takes place in a parking lot, and then you remember that it is a parking lot.
Yes, it does do that, but it's a fun film, and it doesn't. Almost Infinity War takes itself very seriously, which I like, and Infinity War really sells you the stakes of this. Endgame is very fun across the board in parts.
It's putting up the bunting saying, let's celebrate the last 22 or whatever movies that have come out in the MCU.
Which makes it almost impossible to kind of judge, because I don't really feel it stands as a film almost in its own right, does it? It is like, you've got to have been there to kind of enjoy it.
That for me is why I think Infinity War's the tighter, superior movie. Even though it's obviously, again, banking on, all the knowledge you've built up of these characters over the years, I still feel like I could probably show someone Infinity War in the same way I'd show someone the first Star Wars movie, and you could probably gather everything that's going on. I mean, as long as you buy into, like, this superhero's got magic, this one's got this also magic, but we'll call it technology, and it's an Iron Man suit. And, just go from there.
I mean, there's a lot of people who follow us now and have watched Look Who's Talking before. I was never that big on Marvel, and then you show me Infinity War. What had I seen at that point? Like 3 or 4 Marvel films, and I could still follow it. Like, it's a well-made movie. Like, I think it's undeniably a very well-made movie, and I think to say otherwise would be, just snobbish.
I think looking back on the decade in terms of blockbusters, for me at least, it's one of my favourites, alongside like The Fury Roads, The Last Jedis. Probably that would be a pretty solid top 3 for me. I'd probably think about it.
I think Fury Road, for me, will still be the best blockbuster of the decade in many ways because it came out of nowhere.
Yes.
Like, yes, Infinity War was an achievement in terms of there's never been a film like it in terms of all its crossover and all its strands. But to just knock this film out from a franchise that no one's seen in 20 years and create this...
That everyone thought it was going to be shit, didn't they?
Yeah, and it was such an immersive world. And it's got set pieces, you know what? It came out in 2015, didn't it? 5 years ago. I still remember pretty much beat for beat that film. And there's very few films I saw this decade other than maybe Moonlight, and I'm already struggling, that I can remember pretty much beat for beat everything that happened.
Right.
I don't even like Moonlight that much. It just really... and Whiplash is another film that I can remember
I
beat
thought
for
maybe
beat.
you'd say Whiplash.
Yeah, and that's about it. You know, there's very few films that I just think have really kind of stood the test of time in just sort of, not in terms of their quality, but just sheer endurance of being in cultural memory in the same way.
I get what you're saying. I mean, I feel like with certain things, we're not going to see, their impact for like another decade on top, are we?
Well, I remember famously I had an argument with someone in my first week of university about The Dark Knight was going to be a more influential long-term film than Avengers in 2012. I mean, I started university in 2013. And, I was wrong. The Dark Knight is an incredibly influential film. It was culturally ubiquitous still at the time, but it's still a better film, I think, than anything that the
MCU is more... I think
still
the test of time better.
I don't think
in terms of its cultural relevance.
Yes, because its cultural relevance has only grown because of Infinity War, because of all these big tentpoles. The Dark Knight is a better film.
Undeniably.
I don't think anything in the MCU, in my opinion, has equalled The Dark Knight. But as a cultural phenomenon, the Avengers and Iron Man as a whole, they're such a... you can't speak about the 2010s in cinema without the MCU.
But that I do agree. But do you think it's only remain so culturally relevant because it's an ongoing franchise, whereas The Dark Knight and that whole trilogy ended 8 years ago now?
But I think we'll be talking about the MCU, even if you're just doing like a film business degree, you'll be talking about the MCU in any context, won't you?
Yes.
About the history of film. Like, if you're doing very lazy tent poles on film history, oh, this was when we had Chaplin and Keaton and stuff like that. I do think as much as, people are quite snobbish towards it, you can't ignore it. You can't ignore it in history.
Although I do think, partly because the Batman franchise is far older than a lot of other superhero franchises, it kind of has its own place in film history outside of the superhero genre. Like, even once this genre goes the way of the Western, we will still get Batman movies.
I mean, I'd agree with you wholeheartedly. I think it's strange that Batman... I mean, coming kind of just quickly back to Phillips, I guess it was always going to be a Batman film. If any superhero film was going to win Best Picture, it was always going to be a Batman film. Not that it's won it yet, but you know what I'm saying. Like,
he said that he didn't think the success was because of the Batman name, and I'm just like,
well, he's a moron, isn't he?
It absolutely is because of the Batman name. People went to see it because they loved the Joker. I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad film because of that, but you can't deny
he owes it to the Dark Knight.
Exactly, of course he does. I saw a really good tweet. Retweeting him saying that in an interview, and it was the film Upgrade.
Yes,
very very similar in concept, completely coincidentally to Venom. Venom obviously made nearly $1 billion, or did it make more than $1 billion? And Upgrade made like a fraction of that. Just to prove a point there, if it had Venom slapped over it, I'm sure more people would have flocked to see Upgrade.
Iconography equals profit. I mean, anyone can tell you that. Like, so it's a stupid assertion to say. That doesn't mean that the film would be... I don't think the film would be quality changes without the branding. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like if you took the bare bones of many superhero movies and turned them, The Winter Soldier could still be a good thriller. Do you know what I mean? Without all the history, but at the same time, it's the iconography that sells that shit, isn't it? It is.
Speaking of MCU, the MCU was third time was the charm there, wasn't it? I was trying to say it, smoothly as possible. Segues. There's some MCU news that I would like to discuss with you, Chris.
That is one of the worst segues of all time.
Well, it's probably because you just sort of left me floundering, didn't you?
Well, you went, speaking of MCU,
I was like,
MCU.
I was like Leo and you were Rose on that bloody piece of wood. You didn't offer me anything, did you? I just froze to death there.
You really have a big ego, don't you? You're Leo.
Snubbed. No, he got nominated, didn't he?
Yes, did.
He did. Oh,
but he's not in contention, is he? He's not a contender in this.
No, I don't.
It's Driver, De Niro, and Phoenix. That's the race.
I mean, I think it's...
And I think it's Phoenix.
It's a one-horse race, let's be honest.
Yeah, it reminds me of the year Leo won for The Revenant, where, like, his biggest competition was The Martian.
Yes.
Like, it's just like, it's been handed to him.
Yeah. But yeah, before I completely botched that segue, what I was going to say is there's quite a lot of MCU news in the last 7 days since we last recorded. Christian Bale has reportedly joined the MCU. I don't think it's been confirmed yet.
Is he playing Batman?
He's not playing Batman, although wouldn't that be a twist?
Batman v MCU, Dawn of Justice.
Batman would have enough prep time to win, I'm sure. But yeah, he's going to be in Thor Love and Thunder, which I can't believe because Christian Bale, although he starred as Batman in 3 movies, he's not the sort of actor that I think would star in an MCU superhero movie.
Can you believe that the first Thor film, I think, is one of the weaker Phase 1 films? And now I think Thor is really pushing it to be the best character in MCU, and this film just looks more and more fun the more I hear about it.
Well, I think interestingly, him and Christian Bale's Batman, I think, have had some of the best arcs of any superhero in cinema. Like to see Thor lose everything, and not in the way you can say some characters lose everything. Like he literally loses everything across the last 3 appearances he's had. It's been nothing short of fantastic. And I'm really excited to see where it goes in the next instalment, it's particularly with Taika Waititi, coming off the back of Jojo Rabbit, which I loved.
It's going to be really fun, don't you? It's going to be up there with Guardians for the straight funnest film in the MCU.
But I also think it's going to have the heart. I mean, I don't know if you know, Chris, but Natalie Portman's coming back as Lady Thor. In the comics, she's actually dying of cancer before she gets the hammer. Mm-hmm. So, and Taika Waititi said that he's read that run, he really likes it. And if anyone could do that outside of maybe James Gunn in the MCU, I think he could do that story justice and make us all cry and laugh within the same 2-hour experience. So I'm really excited for that. I'm really excited for Christian Bale. On sadder news, Scott Derrickson, the director of the first Doctor Strange movie, has left Marvel over creative differences.
It's sad in a way because I'm not sure I buy the whole narrative that people are putting out, that he put that press statement out saying it was going to be the first horror film in the MCU. And then Kevin Feige said it's not really a horror, and then abruptly, I don't think he was fired for saying that. I think that's a bit facetious.
Oh, who said that?
It's been all over Twitter. Like that's been the narrative that's kind of been spun out of it. Is that he said the horror thing, and that's the creative difference. But it's a shame to me because it's the same thing as when Edgar Wright was taken off Ant-Man. We're not going to see that movie now, are we?
No.
We're just going to see a completely different movie.
We're going to get something very by the numbers, something very safe. I wonder how much of it was to do with toning down the horror elements. And how much of it was to do with... I've seen multiple articles about how XYZ is going to lead in and out of Disney Plus with Doctor Strange into the multiverse of madness. Sorry, the Loki show was meant to weave into it somehow. WandaVision. There are a few other things. I'm just kind of like, well, I think it was probably a little bit of that might have been some of the pushback because that ruins storytelling. I mean, we've all seen how it screwed over Iron Man 2, and also. There was a Comic-Con clip which was shared around on Twitter I saw after the news, and it was when Derrickson was announced as director on Hall H, and he was asked why he came back, and he said, I didn't just want to do a sequel to Doctor Strange, that would feel redundant. I wanted to make something that was in touch with my roots as a director and make like a proper horror movie. And then seconds later, Kevin Feige says something along the lines of, it's PG-13, you're going to like it, to the crowd, which is a bit chilling now.
Why aren't we getting an 18-rated MCU film? I get that it's it does but I mean, Joker has shown us that the R-rated films can gross $1 billion. So why aren't we getting an R-rated MCU? Even
outside of Joker, we've been doing this rodeo for years now. Deadpool, Logan, they both made all the money, and fans loved them. Fans and critics loved them, which in this age is quite hard to do, isn't it?
I guess the thing with the MCU though has always been as much. We do use this excuse a lot for franchises we love, like Doctor Who and Star Wars. They are family movies. They're about taking a little 5-year-old to go and see Iron Man, and then him wanting an Iron Mask for his birthday. No, I don't.
You just take me instead.
Yes, exactly. The same thing. And then they get an Iron Mask for that. Oh, God, yeah. But that's what those films are about. So I do understand to some degree from a business perspective, they're thinking about kids in the cinema.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. But at the same time, we've just had this incredibly ambitious crossover. Why can't the only way to sort of fight back against that and not just make everything feel like, oh, we're building again because we've already had a crossover, is why aren't we getting more genre picks? Why aren't we getting a kitchen sink?
Which is what the MC does feel like at the moment. I'm not particularly hyped for much of Phase 4. Maybe when we start seeing more from it.
I mean, the fact he was already talking about Phase 5.
Yeah.
A lot. I mean, I feel like Phase 4's big gamble, quote unquote, is making Disney Plus IPs intertwine with the movies.
Yeah.
Which I think, especially because we're coming out of the UK, I don't think that's going to pay off in the way that they think. Especially when you look at the drop-off rates from The Mandalorian in subscriptions. I think it's reminding me of when Jay-Z, Kanye West and Rihanna said, we're only going to put music out on Tidal. And within a few months, Kanye West had already relinquished that and got his music back on Spotify. Rihanna put Anti back up on Spotify. And then now, on his birthday, Jay-Z has put it back on Spotify.
Yeah.
People don't like having to pay for disparate... Like, I do think...
Well, I think they see through it, don't they? You know it's a ploy to get your money.
I like the idea of spin-offs coming to TV. You know, I'll tell you what was great show that did intertextual storytelling very well very early on was Heroes, when it was releasing graphic novels alongside its first season. It was releasing like cool shorts on its website that were like mini spin-offs. That's a good way for me to do like transtextuality. What isn't a good way is to make people pay to be able to finish the stories that they love, especially when you're trying to make something that's culturally homogenous like the MCU. You can't be expecting people to just be buying things to understand it.
It's only when it's optional do you want to go and seek it out. Like when the MCU started out, you know, you didn't need to watch Thor to understand Iron Man 1 and 2, and you know, later on the payoffs kind of came with things like Civil War when it started to weave together a bit more essentially. But I don't want that now. I'm tired of it all anyway, to be honest. Like Infinity War and Endgame was exhausting. As much as I loved both of them and I loved the cultural movement around it, they need to go in like a really fresh direction.
That was the thing of the 2010s, wasn't it? I want something new to define the 2020s in the same way that in music, you know, certain genres defined that, you know, if it's 2029 and trap is still one of the most commercially viable forms of hip-hop.
Hell's yeah.
No, but yeah, you don't want that. As much as I lamented the death of people early on in the early 2010s, like, you know, Kanye West's slow slide into decline across that decade, etc. At least with trap, you know,
when you say the death of people, you mean their music, don't you?
Yeah, their music, like metaphorically.
Just official statement.
Or like, you know, how grime came back into cultural ubiquity in like 2016 through to 2020. You don't want those same, and by the same token, you don't, you know, it's nice to see a horror renaissance. Do I want a horror renaissance for 20 years? No, that's what's cool about this. It'd be cool if in 2020 westerns came back. You know, the action movie has had a huge resurgence, hasn't it?
Do you think it went away?
I don't think it went away, but I think what it's had, in the same way that horror, I don't think horror really went away, but I think it's had a critical reevaluation.
I see what you mean.
In the 2010s. I think Fury Road opened the gates for people to take a movie like John Wick more seriously than maybe they would have done had John Wick come out in the mid-2000s with the exact same success. In the same way that The Matrix did in the 90s and the Mission Impossible franchise did, and all these, you know, in the fact that people took Fast and Furious 7 seriously. To some extent, do you know what I mean? Like, you know, it would be nice to see a Western come out to the caliber of No Country for Old Men, for example, in this decade, or to see, you know, I feel like animation is both coming into its own and sort of with this year's Oscar lineup, a bit like.
I think the big genre we'll see across the next decade will be video game movies. More and more of them keep sort of like cropping up out of the woodwork. It's only going to take one of them to be legit good. Yeah,
because we've already seen that with Detective Pikachu. Like, it didn't get panned, did it?
No, and people really liked that, and I do think that's a step in the right direction because it kind of adapted key ideas within that franchise and made it something its own. I think. I mean, I really want the Uncharted movie to be good. I'm not so certain about that, but I do think the Metal Gear Solid movie might knock it out of the park, and that could be the first one because I've got a lot of time for Jordan Vogt-Roberts. And even if it's not that, I do think in the same way Blade, X-Men, Spider-Man knocked it out of the park and saw that resurgence of superhero movies. I do think we'll get an awesome comic book movie, video game movie, in the next decade.
My only worry is they're batting for the wrong kind of IPs. Like the cool thing about, say, a Last of Us movie is that the Last of Us. Not the cool thing almost. The cool thing about The Last of Us is it's a cinematic game, right? Uncharted is a cinematic game. It feels a bit redundant to turn it into a movie because it did so much for the art form. Well, I think what something like Pikachu or Sonic is... That's something like, we want a colourful... Like, what video games would be cool? I would love to see something like, say, another Mario movie, but it's just good.
Absolutely.
I would eat that up, a CGI Mario movie with the right director, with someone like Phil Lord behind it.
Yeah.
Or someone, not even like a Phil Lord-esque one by someone who actually loves the world. You could get a great movie out of that.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that's going to crack it, like a really good Crash Bandicoot or Spyro movie.
If you could make the Lego movie and make it awesome, there's no excuse why you can't make an awesome Mario Brothers movie. There's like a cosmic epic where they have to go and save Princess Peach and fight dinosaurs.
There's so much iconography in the world, and like Lego, you can say, "Oh, Mario's not a character," but Lego isn't a character. Like, right? You can build. You don't even have to make Mario the main guy. Like, you could have someone else, a randomer in the universe. You know what was a really good way of doing that? That Muppets movie with Jason Segel.
I haven't seen it.
And it's excellent because what it does is it's about someone who's born a puppet.
Okay.
Right, so they're a puppet, and all they've ever wanted to do is be one of the Muppets.
Oh,
so the setup is that Jason Segel's like his brother, and I'm working off memory here, but I think Jason Segel's his brother, and he's like, well, why don't we go and like meet the Muppets? And that's the whole thing. So you've got this kind of normal audience surrogate, and you've got like an easy goal-driven thing, and people like Kermit and Miss Piggy and stuff are there for the ride.
Oh, and they're already like legends.
Yeah, and
okay.
it's a clever way to do it. So by the same token, you could have, I want to be it's just a random Goomba or something. I want to be a star in Mushroom Kingdom.
Yeah.
And then Mario's just in the film. It doesn't have to be like Mario and Luigi are the main characters even. Do you know what I mean?
Although I would like a buddy cop action movie with Mario and Luigi.
Well, you got that with Bob Hopkins.
And John Leguizamo, my boy.
Mario and Luigi Mario.
What's your first name? Mario. What's your last name? Mario.
I mean, Shigeru Miyamoto did confirm that is actually their surnames.
Yeah.
Because they're the Mario Bros, aren't they?
But you know, if he says it, I'll go with it. You know,
Yeah.
Some fucking Hollywood director says it.
Yeah.
It's bullshit.
I mean, you could make a good Legend of Zelda movie. Like, I feel like Nintendo.
Yeah.
For me, I mean, I'm a Nintendo fanboy, as you know, but I feel like Nintendo is the perfect place to make a really, really good video game movie because it's such a colourful world.
Well, they're more mythic IPs, aren't they? They've been around longer. I feel like something like Nathan Drake, as you said, it's like there's already a great Nathan Drake story out there. Do we need to see it on film? Whereas
I'll roll my eyes if we get a Bioshock movie. Do you know what I mean? It's like you've played the movie; it's the game.
I see what you mean. I feel like with Bioshock, because it's more the nature of having like a silent protagonist and you finding audio logs and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
maybe there is an awesome movie. I mean, Gore Verbinski almost made it.
Really?
Yeah, they couldn't get the budgets to work.
Okay.
He was basically making an R-rated blockbuster, and they were just like, no, the budget needs to go way down. He was like, I can't make it for that.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a shame. It's a crying shame. Shall we move on to the thing that we saw together on Friday, if you remember?
Free Solo.
Indeed. Free is a solo.
I mean, I don't want to dwell on Free Solo too much, just because like it's not really of the moment, but it blew my mind, even if I didn't think it was like a 5-star documentary.
It was the first time we'd seen it, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think you'll agree with me, because we kept bringing it up the whole time we were watching. The relationship in that movie is super weird, isn't it?
It's really toxic, and it's weird to see a relationship in a documentary that's not toxic on one side. I feel like they're both very toxic to each other.
Yeah.
You know, she seems to just want to diminish all his dreams, and by the same token, he seems to treat her as just an object.
Yeah, he's quite dismissive of her, isn't he? I mean, we're using he and she because I can't remember either of their names. Is it Adam?
I couldn't tell you with any confidence.
Okay, let's just use Climber Man and
Climber Girl.
Man's girlfriend.
Yeah.
Well, she's not really a Climber Girl, is she?
No,
as he mentions, like he makes sure to mention that, doesn't he? Yeah.
Can I just say that is the equivalent of someone being like, "You're not a real gamer." Like it's like she does enjoy climbing. Like she met him at a climbing event. Like she's just not one of the world's greatest climbers. Do you know what I mean?
But it's strange, isn't it? Because it seems like she's trying to make him something he's not, and that's quite toxic. And she seems intent on, like, during the whole documentary when he's sort of umming and ahhing about doing it, he's going to do it eventually. He's got to do it. It's his dream. She's the only one in the room being like, no, you don't have to. You can just kind of stay here. You don't have to climb the mountain.
I mean, the film's so interesting to me in a way because it's sort of odd because on the flip side, I feel like he's just so bluntly like, yeah, I'll probably die, haha. That I get from her perspective almost that she'd be like, there's the option not to die. But at the same time, I feel like she fell in love with him for his passion.
Yes.
But then, so what would happen? Would she change him and then she wouldn't love him anymore? Because she seems less to love him for who he is. But at the same time, she fell in love with him for who he is. It's very confused.
But then on the flip side, I feel for her because she's clearly very kind to him and very affectionate, and he just gives virtually nothing back. Like, there's that gut-wrenching bit where she says, yeah, I tell him he I tell him that I love him, and he shows me that he loves me. I was like,
Yeah.
what does that mean? So, are you saying that he very rarely tells you "I love you" too? That's very sad.
Yeah, it's just sad to me in many ways because I I don't think I've seen some people comment on it online like, oh, you know, she's just there for the prestige and stuff, and I think she genuinely does love him, and I think it's quite sad watching it and thinking that I don't think he loves her as much as he loves climbing, which is fine, but I don't think she loves anything like he loves climbing. So it's a bit.
I think the problem is that she won't accept that, but also that on the flip side, she's trying to get him to swap around the priorities. Like, isn't there that bit where she says something? I'm completely paraphrasing, but she says something like, "Is there not anything that you'd want to do more than climbing, or like, is there anyone or anything that could?"
She says anyone like
me?
twice.
Yeah, and he's like, no, like.
But it's weird because he says no as if he's not even understood the context of the question.
Yeah, he's a peculiar guy. I mean, he's obviously an absolute wizard at what he does.
The thing that struck me was the methodology of repeatedly going up a mountain on rope and marking out all the trajectories.
Oh, it's incredibly impressive.
Like, it's a kind of religious diligence, isn't it? It's the kind of thing that only you really see in like people of like faith. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a hobby, but it's more like a personal like thesis.
Yeah.
So he just spends his whole time praying at the shrine that is climbing.
It's gripping because that's his entire life, isn't it? And like this climb is his absolute dream. It's the climb of his life, and if he does it, he'll probably be one of the best, if not the best, climbers in the world.
Yeah, and like I couldn't live a life like that, and you couldn't live a life like that. But there's something kind of like, I think to myself when I watch it, something like there is something kind of honourable about what he's doing, even if he's not particularly a nice person.
I see what you mean. It's an interesting mix in the documentary, isn't it? Because you're getting all that, and then you're also seeing him, you know, at home and with his girlfriend, and you're sort of getting the sense that, you know, if he wasn't climbing anymore, I think he'd be at a loss of what to do with his life.
I mean, I think that for me is what makes it ultimately an interesting documentary. Is you feel like you've met a very, very, very interesting character, and it's quite rare in a documentary to kind of. Often the subject is what carries the documentary, and the characters are there as the B-side. But I feel like almost the subject in this film paves way to just him as a person. And I just find him personally fascinating.
Yes, I agree.
And you know, as much as I don't think he's a nice person, he's just certainly gripping.
Adam Collard?
Isn't that the name, I kid you not, isn't that the name of the man from Love Island Series 4?
It might be.
I think that's Adam Collard, if I'm not mistaken. I think that is Adam Collard from Love Island Series 4 you're referring to.
Well, on that note,
Love Island is back.
Love Island is back.
God, this is where everyone turns off the podcast.
Yeah, don't worry, we'll talk about Doctor Who in a sec.
So at the time that we're recording this, only one episode is aired.
Yes.
I'm not sure about this cast. I think it's got a lot of potential. My worry is that we had a real opportunity to do something different with Love Island Winter.
Yes.
And now it's been rebranded across the board. It was announced as Love Island Winter. It's been very subtly rebranded to Love Island Series 6. Everything that's on its YouTube channel is hashtagged that way. The way it's been put out is, it's time for Series 6, which strikes me as odd because it feels like they've had a crisis of confidence in the premise.
I get, you know, part of the appeal of Love Island is everyone's in their swim shorts and it's really hot and it's like a holiday and now we're all going to fall in love. But you could totally fit that aesthetic into a ski lodge with hot springs and, you know, make it really cozy and give it a winter vibe. And do you know what I mean? Like, you could have gone for an entirely different aesthetic. I think that would have very much helped it feeling, you know, fresh and new.
And almost a different kind of contrib.
Yes.
Anything. I mean, that's the thing really, is that, like, I think you said this to me. It just feels like Love Island, which is great. I like Love Island. I'm sure within a few weeks I'm going to be thinking this is great. And like, Love Island always takes a lot of time to get into. It's an actual commitment to kind of get into it. The first episode's always boring. I don't know who these characters are, so there's not really a lot to debunk in terms of the show. I just think it's a missed opportunity. I think ITV had a bit of a crisis of confidence after Survival of the Fittest failed. They're like, Love Island, their attempt at kind of placing it in the slot, and I think they've gone for safety.
It's just weird, isn't it? Like, January is not the time I'm feeling Love Island as a reality TV show. I want to kind of come back, watch some trashy TV with you when it's super hot.
Yeah.
And do you know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, like Love Island, what's going on in the villa? And it's kind of you know the talk of the summer, in the UK at least.
I will say one thing though. This is one of the most diverse casts ever. Not in terms of even necessarily like there are a lot more people of colour than usual, but it's not even that. It feels like there's a lot more people from different backgrounds. There's not a load of people from Essex and Towie Wombeys in the same way. It does, there's a lot of more regional accents. There's a lot more.
Well, there's also the heir to that estate, isn't there?
What, the Cornish man? Ollie is it Ollie his name?
I think so. I mean, the guy that's been outed as a hunter all over the internet.
Did you notice he
That,
dabbed?
hasn't he? Yes, yeah, he did dab. Yeah,
That's all over Reddit at the moment. I thought I was the only person to clock it, and he literally he dabbed when he thought she wasn't looking, which I think makes that even funnier.
What a douche.
But I'm sure in a few weeks' time we'll have more to say on it.
Yeah,
and I'm sure it's going to be good. It's always good. It's just a bit of a shame on principle that they didn't try and kind of make it more relevant to the time that it was set.
Yes.
And speaking of something being relevant, I think this is the time to bring up this week's episode of Doctor Who.
Oh, wait, hang on. I've got a Look Who's Talking intro ready. You ready? Ba-ba-ba-bum, 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 ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. Look Who's Talking. With Matt and Chris. Stay milky.
Right, so this week's episode of Doctor Who, which was titled, in the grand tradition of all episodes of the Chibnall era having horrendous titles, Orphan 55. What's this one next week, by the way? Is it Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror? I mean, that may
Has that been officially announced?
Yeah, I think that may be the single worst episode title I heard, although Prisoner of the Jadoon is up there for me, which is going to be episode 5. That's written by
with these titles?
Vinay Patel, who wrote Demons of the Punjab.
Okay.
But this week's Orphan 55, let's get the elephant out of the room. I fucking hated it.
I can't believe you hated it.
I just
Hated it.
so disappointed. I thought
I don't know what you expected from episode 3 in a season of Doctor Who. But anyway,
excuse me.
enjoyed it.
Gridlock is episode 3 of season
Oh,
Doctor
yeah,
Who.
yeah,
The
yeah.
Unquiet Dead.
Yeah.
Curse of Black Spot.
Oh, Curse of Black Spot. What a phenomenal dumpster fire that is. I was pleasantly surprised. I didn't think it was amazing. But I still think it's a huge step up from series 11. There was ideas behind it and cool concepts, and there was an attempt at characters.
I think it's so strange to me that we've almost had an inverted reaction to Ed Himes' other story, where I gave It Takes You Away a lot more plaudits than you did, because I was like, at least it was trying to do something, and you were like, it's really sloppy, there isn't any character work, it's all over the place tonally. And now we've kind of swapped our criticisms, because
I feel
they're
this
all
was much
my...
tighter than that. Like, I think It Takes You Away, the alternate universe stuff with Graham and that, like, that's stronger than anything in this. But I think as a whole package, I really had fun with this. It was clearly Aliens, which, obviously I'm a huge fan of. Right down to the design of the truck was exactly like the APV in Aliens, the motion trackers. By the way, the creature design in this was fantastic. Did you not think?
Honestly, I thought the creature design in close-up was very good. And I thought the way they used close-ups in the initial set pieces with Ryan were used very effectively. I think in full, for me, they looked like a bad cross between the monsters in the Time Machine by H.G. Wells.
Wait. Are you going to say the Weevils?
No.
You weren't going to say the Weevils?
I was going to say the future kind from Primeval.
Oh,
I think they look very similar, and their
I don't know what they look like.
Pretty much the same.
Okay.
I'll show you a picture of them after this blog, which I thought, though, for the budget, it was good for a shoestring budget. I think when they were in outside and looked more like primates, I think they looked a bit naff. I never criticised Doctor Who stories on the special effects, really. That's part of the course. Like, I never have an issue with a Doctor Who story. I thought there were some absolutely lame set pieces.
Really?
That woman who was screaming Benny the whole time, sacrificing herself, but like just walking forward and getting mauled instantly, so she basically didn't have to die, was so dumb.
No, I disagree there, because she's too old to run away. By jumping into the belly of the beast, she's buying them some time. Also, I did enjoy... What did she say? Something like, which one of you is the one that killed my Benny?
I mean,
that was fun.
I'm glad that she died, because I found her supremely irritating across the episode.
I didn't like how her husband died, because you didn't see him, and you just kept getting told that he was outside and captured by them. Also, why did they capture him and not just
Never explained.
eat him? No, never explained.
I think they should have. I think they should have done something clever with that, because I thought we were getting an Angel Bob type situation when he said, "I've got 2 questions for you." I thought it was going to be something like, "Can I come in?" Which would have been really chilling, because and I thought you were going to see him in view and he was like mutated or something, and that's because I had a bit of a sneaking suspicion watching it. I was like, not like this is Earth, but I was like, these are like people who've been mutated. So I thought, what if he was partially mutated and that's why he said, "Please kill me"? But he wasn't, and there was some very cool ideas. I like the idea that they invert their breathing to adapt to their new wasteland environment.
Yes.
And the big giveaway for me was when she said it's an apex predator. I was like, oh, so they're mutants. They're not.
Yeah.
They're not. But I don't think it was ever really actually explicitly said that they were humans either. There was a bit where she was randomly mumbling about trees.
I thought. I'm pretty sure they did say they were evolved from humans.
I thought she just said they evolved. I don't think they ever. I think it was implied it was humans, and I took it as humans. Okay. But I don't think they ever explicitly said the word
Maybe we'll
humans.
have to go back and watch that.
Yeah, I'm pretty certain it was just like they evolved from the condition.
Okay. I mean, I really enjoyed it. I really liked how clean the setup was in the first couple of minutes. Like, oh, we've won tickets to go to this resort. We're in a space resort. Fantastic. Let's go have fun with it. I thought there were some really great exchanges. Like, again, I feel like Whittaker's really cemented herself in the role this season with these first 3 episodes. Like when Ryan had that bug and she was helping him out, that felt a bit like, in the Unicorn and the Wasp when David Tennant's asking for all these cures for the poison. I just felt like she has a really good grasp this season on commanding a room when she walks in and telling people, no, this is how it's going to happen because of your actions, and this is how I'm going to get you out of it. Felt very doctory. I like the supporting cast. You said to me before we recorded earlier that you thought there were too many characters. I do agree with that.
I thought it was overstuffed, but I think a lot of my criticisms of it, in fairness, come down to the fact that I think Spyfall show this, make it a 2-parter. I do think it was paced. I didn't like the pacing personally, but on reflection, do I think maybe that's because Spyfall was such a long epic, and then to just have this thing that's like 45 minutes. But then I also felt like saying that, I think there were better tight one-handers. Like, I always come back to this, something like School Reunion.
Would you like a tight one-hander?
School Reunion.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. All right.
Give me a few minutes.
All right. A few seconds now, my love. Like, something like School Reunion or something like Heaven Sent. Obviously, they're very good episodes, or God Complex. But I felt like this was more middle of the road for me in terms of a base under siege. I didn't feel like any of the characters particularly were interesting.
But it is episode 3 in a season. I mean, like, how, as I said earlier, how many episode 3s are great? Also, coming off the back of a excellent 2-parter, the last time that happened really was, Curse of the Black Spot? So it is basically Curse of the Black Spot again in terms of its placement.
Yeah, episode
in the series.
3 does tend to be a bit naff. I was trying to think back. I think the only episode 3s that I would say are quite good are Thin Ice.
Yeah,
I have a lot of love for Thin Ice, and I do think over time we've both warmed to Victory of the Daleks quite a bit.
Yeah, I know. I've got time for Victory of the Daleks, and Unquite Dead's good. I'm trying to rack my brains for Shakespeare Code sucks. Or is that episode 2?
That's episode 2. Gridlock's one of the best episode 3s, really, when you tally it all up. But that's actually got the same issues I think I have with this episode, in that it's a bit all over the place.
I think it was a criminal waste of James Buckley. Although I do like the dynamic of the mechanic's son is better equipped than him.
There was no emotional payoff to it to me in the way it felt like there was too many. It reminded me. I don't remotely, before you think I'm being hyperbolic. It reminded me of Tussanunga Conundrum, not in its quality, but in terms of there's a lot of supporting cast here, and so only kind of given snippets of who they are. Yes. And so because of that, I felt like a lot of the characters one that I mentioned, get rid of, for example, the old couple, maybe have James Buckley nicked or something.
I don't know,
like, there was too much.
It feels very Russell Davies.
Get rid of that cat. It looked like something from Spaceballs.
Well, she got killed pretty quickly.
Yeah, I know, but
you need a bit of a body count.
You didn't need, no, but the body count was already established in the opening act when all the residents were killed. I don't necessarily mean get rid of and kill off. I mean, like, you could have just scrapped a few people out of it. I thought the reveal that it was a daughter was a bit naff. Just because it didn't feel earned to me. No. She didn't feel earned to me as a character. She felt very one note.
I did like how breakneck it was, and how we kept getting these different revelations, and they were all tying into the central question of where are we, what's going on, who's behind it. I think often reveals that can screw with the pacing of something, or when something massive happens and it's skimmed over, like in Rise of Skywalker, you know, when Hux is shot. The reason why, to me, that jars me pace-wise is because that's a character we've followed for 2 movies, and now he's just been blown off screen like it's not a big deal. Whereas all the reveals in this, even if they didn't...
What do you mean reveal? What do you mean reveal?
What reveal?
In the episode?
Well, you know, like when the mum is revealed to be related to...
Yeah, that one. But what was the other reveal?
Oh, you mean when it turns out to be Earth?
Wait, what? The Statue of Liberty? That was our planet! You blew it up! You monsters! Damn you! Damn you all to hell! So I just, you know, I really wanted to do that. I've always, you know, it's been my dream in life to have myself recorded doing the Planet of the Apes. So.
Was that worth giving me the facial signal midway through my sentence to completely throw me off what I was saying?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
But yeah, it all kind of fed in, even if some of it was a bit hokey. But I was kind of along for the ride. Also, the planet actually looks really cool. The fog surrounding them, you know, when they came out of the APV, made it feel like a legit crock of shit planet.
I just don't think it's quite... It's still not for me. The batting average for an average episode is not high enough for me. Like, I don't want that to... This is reminding me of Ghost Monument, where it's quite early in the series, so we're a bit like, oh, you know, but like... It has to be better than this, in my opinion.
I still think it's stronger in terms of the ideas it's playing with, and I feel like there's still genuine effort put behind it. I think Whittaker's much more comfortable in the role. Graham's still hilarious.
Are you talking about him having his Speedos?
Yeah, I mean, so many things. The amount of times he said son, always fantastic. Also, I think, you know, Ryan and Yaz are coming into their own a bit more.
As we said last series, I think Tosin Cole is always given the most to do thematically.
He is, yeah.
Even if I do still think he's the weakest actor.
What was the line he said? Oh, yeah, and he's like, oh, so how long have you been unemployed? And she's like, oh, is that the worst chap line ever? And he's like, yeah, I've just made history. Oh, also, I really like the exchange, you know, when they're having a little conversation about
and the
their
doctor
parents.
comes in the middle.
Yeah, and then Yaz, who I feel like you're right, they are clearly developing some sort of romantic connection there, because she keeps piping up like, oh, what are you guys talking about? And then when he's like, what does he say? Something like, oh yeah, no, we're just talking about dead parents actually. Like the way he delivers that had me cracking up. So I think there's loads of moments like that in the episode that kind of gave me a lot of goodwill towards it, even if it doesn't quite come together.
What it was for me was I wasn't enjoying the first act. I thought it felt rushed. The second act and then the human reveal, I was like, this is really, really intriguing. And then I just didn't feel like it kind of paid off. I felt particularly the ending was just, they got zapped away, and then they were like, can't we go back? And she was like, we can't. Maybe that was... I was not a fan of, this is just one possible future. She's not Doctor Strange.
No.
You know, the cool thing with Doctor Who for me is that always like, as much as time is malleable, it's also sort of fixed. So like the Doctor does that thing with Satellite 5 in Series 1. It doesn't splinter the timeline in half, does it? It drastically changes the timeline. So it feels strange to me that the Doctor would just go, this is one of many timelines. It's like, well,
I mean, we don't know yet in the season if that's going to come back.
No, and there are rumours to suggest that last series was focusing on historical issues and this series will focus more on the environment.
Okay.
And there have been buzz about that. I don't know how true it is. I mean, the same kind of people who were generating those rumours were saying that there were whole episodes going to be on some of the guests that were in last week, and there were people saying there was a whole episode in war-torn Paris, France, for example. So take that with a pinch of salt. But
I do think it was a bit veering into edutainment in the last couple of minutes.
That
just basically
speech.
addressing the camera. Yeah, no, I wasn't a fan of that. But I do think the idea that they've gone to this like resort which has this lovely sheen, and it's like, oh, you know, relax, forget about all your problems, and then outside is the actual Earth, which is scorched and full of monsters. I quite enjoyed. Also, I do like, even though the mother-daughter stuff didn't quite work for me, the fact that they get on the teleport and then Graham's kind of half-heartedly like, yeah, they'll be all right, and Ryan's just like, how are they going to be all right? We've left them there, and you just never find out what happens to them. They probably got eaten, but I like the ambiguity.
Which I think comes back to the theme of this season, which I think is being sewed in now more clearly, is the trust in the Doctor. Yaz at the end. How long did you know about that?
Yes, yeah.
And I'm like, I think this is going to be the big theme of the Doctor being fallible. And I'm excited for that, even if I didn't like this episode that much, because Series 11 really made her infallible and made her awesome.
Did you notice the returning character this episode from previous seasons, which I'm sure you would have gotten a kick out of if you'd recognised it?
No, what was it?
Well, it's the good old tunnel from Flatline, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
That popped up in Zygon Invasion.
Oh, yeah.
And, at least, I'm pretty sure it was the same tunnel. It looked very similar.
Always the same bloody tunnel.
Yeah. They've used it in something else, haven't they?
Yes, they've used it. Oh, that's going to really annoy me. But yes, they always use that fucking tunnel. And it's always used in the same way. It
never looks different, does it?
No.
Also, before the Earth reveal, when they went down there, I was like, that's clearly brickwork. Which was not... There's no way that was a tease to say that it was Earth.
No,
that was just they didn't have the budget to get a proper tunnel.
You know what it is for me? It reminds me of when we were making student films. And when we were at university, there was a sort of basement zone in where the main campus was. And every time we did a sci-fi film or anything that required an interrogation or a hospital or anything, we always just went, let's use the basement zone. And now I look at all the student films I made, and so many of them just include this basement area that people are running down. Like, I think there's at least 5 I can think of almost immediately that we made as students.
I think the best time it was ever used was in Backed Up, because we actually bothered to try and
we turned it into a hospital.
And it actually looked alright if you kept it fairly tight on the environment.
It's just bizarre to me. I mean, I'm pretty sure they use the same studio a lot for a lot of their historical things as well, given the shape often.
Yeah,
it's like a weird. It's like always like a weird rectangular shape where it all converges in one corner, and then you never see the left-hand side of the screen. It's always all the historical sets.
The one I really remember just from New Who's history is in Series 6. The Ganger control room is the exact same shape, including up the stairs and the entrance to where they find Amy with Melody in Good Man Goes to War. And obviously it's like the very next episode. If you look, like, the actual layout of the room is exactly the same.
It is funny when that happens.
Yeah, like redressed set.
It's the same thing with albums, though. Often, like, it's the same thing as, like, sequencing. If you put that in 2 separate series, it doesn't look as bad. Like, we're complaining right now, but... like Flatline and Zygon Inversion and this gap, it's a long gap. You know what I mean? It's just funny because we're fans.
We're nerds.
There's an album by Mac DeMarco which has 2 songs which start with the exact same chord, just strummed exactly once, like Dun. So when you play them back to back, it's just like, wow, he really was devoid of inspiration.
He was innovating.
He just thought, oh, you know what? I'll just start this song in the exact same way.
None of these idiots will notice.
But I'm still not like, oh, the series is back. Even if I didn't enjoy this episode, I'm still very much loving Spyfall. I'm liking that they're seeding in more things for a character.
It wasn't more confidence. I enjoyed it. Didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. I think there was a lot of things to keep me going. Also, I think it felt a bit Rusty Davies-esque in the sense of, like, the old couple, the father-son, we were getting little tidbits of these characters, and, there was a body count, people were actually dying.
It's just been done better, in my opinion. But...
yes. Also, quickly, before we give our rankings, the only thing that really bothered me was, how it was like, oh, you're running out of oxygen, because that felt really empty as a point of tension, and also, there's a certain episode... can't remember the name of it, that dealt with oxygen really well, didn't it? And used that as a point of tension.
Oh, what's it called?
Yeah,
Aliens of London.
That was it. Yeah. And I feel like once you've done it, you can't do it in a lesser form in another episode.
Just for anyone who's wondering, Matt obviously wasn't referring to Aliens of London. He was referring to Sleep No More.
Sleep No More. Can't wait for that 2-part, the second concluding episode.
No, it was Series 10, Episode 5, written by Jamie Mason, CO2. So, how would you rank this week's episode then?
I'd give it a semi-skimmed.
I mean, it's skimmed all the way for me, but
I think that's super harsh. But
hey, I hold Doctor Who to a high standard. I always will.
Well, I mean, it's up to you.
You know what else I held to a high standard? This podcast, and it's not been working out well. So,
who are you going to get in to replace me? Christopher Plummer.
No, I'll just... You know what I'll do? I will speak into this microphone, then I'll run all the way around to the other side. I'll speak to this, and it'll feel like a real conversation.
Really? So it'll be like that Robin Williams movie, Hook.
I don't actually know which Robin Williams movie you're referring to. Is that Good Morning Vietnam, or...
No, you know the one where he's Peter Pan, but he's like grown up?
No, but is that in Hook? I've not seen Hook.
No. I was... the thing of him...
Yeah, what were you referencing?
Hook.
I mean, I'm going to take it. I'm going to take that surface value because I think you're
What other Robin Williams film is there where he assumes a dual role and has to sort of like flip flop between the two identities?
Oh, it's Mrs. Doubtfire. Oh, I see.
No.
Oh, for God's sake, I'm an idiot.
Such great banter, it really is.
So on that note, I guess this is a goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me. And if you don't see me for the rest of the day, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. I don't think I botched that quote.
You know, I was really hoping we could do it. I was really hoping we could do a two Ronnies. So I'd say it's a good night from you. No,
yes.
from me.
Yeah.
And then you'd say, and it's a good night from him. You know,
Okay.
in a homage. So should we try it again?
Okay, cool.
And it's a good night from me.
Mm.
And so you say it's a good night from him when I.
Oh,
say,
okay. Give it one more go. Give it one more go.
And it's a good night from me.
Knickers.
Right. Okay. And so when I put my hand in the hair and I stamp down.
Your hand in the hair.
In the air, and I stamp down on your left foot.
Right.
You
Yeah.
smile and nod.
Okay.
Hello, Mr. Thompson.
But Chris, they're not going to be able to see me smile and nod.
Yeah. Oh well, this has been a futile exercise. I've been Chris.
And I've been Chris as well.
Oh my God. You know what? I'm going to hit stop now.
Okay, look.
Thank you for listening.
This is goodbye from you, mate, man, Matt, and please don't forget to listen.
Can I just mention one more thing? I can't remember, can I just mention one more thing? Just you saying, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Do you remember that Reddit thing we saw the other day?
Oh,
with
the kids,
some woman had her kid's friend round, and as she said goodbye to him, and as he left, he said, "Don't forget to like and subscribe." He was 5 years old, and he watched so much YouTube that he did not realise that wasn't just another word for goodbye.
That is the first step towards the idiocracy, isn't it?
Yeah. So in the grand tradition of that, don't forget to like and subscribe, and goodbye.